Follow the buzzer. Rest in peace. Woo! The best there is, the best there was, and the best ever will be. What you gonna do, brother? Hey, yo.
Can you see me now?
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, GoodOlJM. This is episode 70, coming to you from CSP Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling, and it is SummerSlam TakeOver weekend. Kind of merged both shows' names there. But yeah, SummerSlam 2019, this Sunday from Toronto, Canada. I'll have the rundown and NXT TakeOver Toronto in just a bit. Well, I mean, I'm just trying not to get my thoughts out now, but I'm sure the crowd in Canada, in Toronto specifically, will be with it or live enough because, well, as many of you know, Canada in general, whenever there's a WWE event on pay-per-view or RAW, SmackDown, it's described as Bizarre World, and you can have the opposite reactions of what you're looking for. You can have the heels be baby faces and vice versa. And just crap all over a match that started off okay, but then it slowed down or just became boring or there's no chemistry or what have you. It's no different than any other major city in the United States. For example, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and all points in between. But it will be interesting. It'll be very interesting, and considering that the lineup they have, personally, it's a bit lackluster considering how many matches they had built up only within a week or so. Others, at least a month in advance, at the very least 3 weeks. And of course, other matches that have been building up for the past month or so on Raw and or SmackDown, which I'll get into in a bit. And I'm sure there's another feeling one level below of interesting. I know I always say, we'll see, that phrase. I know I say that a lot here. But if anyone can help me out between a term or phrase or feeling between interesting and we'll see how a show goes, or in this case, SummerSlam, let me know in the comments below because I'm having difficulties there. It's been a long weekend. I'm literally going to spend the rest of the time between the end of this episode up until maybe the pre-show or kickoff, I should say, of SummerSlam to just kick back. It's been one of those weeks. So I'm feeling it right now. I'm actually in the studios a little bit earlier than normal, but I figure, beat the crowd now, especially beat the traffic back home. So let's get right into it. Raw this past week opened up with a very nice, touching and very classy tribute to the victims of the shooting incidents in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio over the weekend. The shootings that took place within 13 hours of each other. There are no links other than the incidents being very similar. Many lives were lost, many more injured. I know I don't try to be political on my show. I'd rather not have it here. But what I'm going to say is when will be enough? When would enough be enough? So, again, I applaud WWE for this very touching moment. It was almost difficult to segue away from it because Raw finally used an opening theme. First time in a while. I'll say, it's been months. First I thought it was about a year, but I think it's been more than that. But then I went back to rethink. Like, no, I don't think it's been that long. But I'm going to say a few months, maybe early in the year, not counting Raw 25. But around that period, there was an actual opening with theme song and everything. So I thought that was I thought that they believed it was the only way to fade to black out from the tribute, from the 10 bell salute, and get back into the flow of things with Raw. So after I think it was kind of cut off. I didn't go back to watch, but just as the opening intro was ending, all of a sudden we see Samoa Joe standing on top of the broadcast table by the staging area and chastising the announcers, especially Cole, in regards to the, quote, accusations towards Samoa Joe from the week before of someone attacking Roman Reigns with a forklift, knocking over a lot of equipment, including a railing that would have crushed Roman Reigns had it not been for anvil cases that stopped it. And yeah, of course, keeping the kayfabe, Roman Reigns is having a feud with Samoa Joe, so who else would it be? And now I hope they don't overkill or overdo the swerving. It's fine. I have no problem being swerved here and there, but that needs to be spread out. I'm not saying they've done it now or recently, but just throwing it out there that if there are any plans for more swerving to go on, then just pace yourself with it. There's only so many times you can swerve, and it's happened. Of course, we know who's famous for doing stuff like that on a weekly basis many years ago, but after a while, you just lose the audience's interest because, for as much as you try to insult a lot of the audience by calling them smart fans, that's exactly what they are, smart. They'll figure things out and they'll realize, your bullshit, creative I'm speaking to. And I say, whoa, okay, well, they saw it coming or they figured it out or it's too obvious. But you still go out of your way when you're called on it. You still go out of your way to try to insult us. Yeah, good job there. Anyway, so Samoa Joe was waiting for Roman Reigns to show up at the arena and expect a public apology and that he was about to hold up Raw. This did not happen as Becky Lynch, her theme music hit and headed to the ring for a tag team match, teaming up with Charlotte Flair. So we have reluctant tag team partners taking on their SummerSlam opponents in Natalya and Trish Stratus. Now, the story here was more on Natalya. And by the way, Trish Stratus never tagged in the entire match. I guess just to put her out there. It was announced over the weekend to be a tag team match. Oh, Trish Stratus returns to Raw. I was like, okay, kind of giving away your, even if it's meant for a preview, but you're kind of giving away your SummerSlam match here in a sense, even though it's a tag team match. But loopholes, I guess. Never tag her in. So Natalya was the one, basically a 2-on-1 handicap match. So it came down to Natalya and Charlotte. Charlotte hits the ropes and gets blind tagged by Becky, who comes in. But of course, Becky, the way she blind tagged Charlotte, she took offense to it because it was a little too high on the head. And but more so because she didn't expect it and didn't want Becky to tag in because she's trying to take care of business, that being Charlotte. So once Becky had a back turn to Charlotte, she gets attacked from behind and leaves the ring, leaving her tag team partner high and dry. This allows Natalya to counter into a sharpshooter. And Becky fought, held on, did not tap out. She finally made it to the ropes. Referee calling for the bell. Referee was trying to call for the 5 count for the break. Natalya ignored. She continued a la Bret Hart, Jerry Lawler back in SummerSlam of, 94? I'm sorry, 93. And did not let go of the hold long after the bell. So she was disqualified. Winners by DQ of Becky and Charlotte. And even after the bell, again, Natalya did not let go So it took Trish Stratus to finally step into the ring, try to talk some sense into a tag team partner. But instead, she gets shoved for troubles, Trish did, looking in a state of confusion. And Natalya just jumps out of the ring and leaves. So it was Trish checking on Becky. So a little turn of events there. But yeah, they're trying to build up Natalya as strong as possible to be a legit threat towards Becky's title for SummerSlam. Well, I'll get more into this. Well, you know what? Let me say it now. Yeah, we all know. Let's just face it. The only reason why Natalya's even getting this title shot, the only reason why she even won that elimination match, because, oh, wait, Natalya, we'll be in Canada and Natalya's the Canadian. Makes sense to us. I mean, hindsight, maybe. Natalya did deserve it. Long time coming. She's, I think, from the entire women's roster, whether they're active or not, I want to say Natalya is the veteran out of all of them. She has tenure there, seniority, if you will, over everyone that's there now, even though if she and others came up through NXT. But as far as the main roster goes, I think Natalya has, quite a few years above everyone else. And similar to Randy Orton, he's a veteran. He's been there for over a decade. Natalya as well. And thankfully, they toned it down where Orton gets a title shot every year or twice a year. And here he is about to challenge for the WWE title against Kofi Kingston at SummerSlam. Not always using the excuse like, SummerSlam is being held in St. Louis, Missouri. Who's from there? Randy Orton. All right, give him a title shot. You can't always go to that well, guys. And who knows what they were actually thinking? I mean, if that was the legit thought process, like, well, we're in Canada, give the shot to a Canadian, let's move on. If that's the case, then to me, that just shows their lack of confidence in the other members of the roster, in this case, the women's division. I know it's a bit, the roster itself, it's a bit stale right now. A lot of women are out due to injury. Ruby Riott had a second surgery. Nia Jax is still recovering. Who knows whenever Sasha Banks is going to return. Ronda Rousey wants to make babies. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the roster's fault. It's all about creative and giving TV time to certain people. Where's Sarah Logan? Where's Lacey Evans? Good Lord. It's like after Extreme Rules, her and Baron Corbin just dissolved into thin air. And all of this after high praise for Lacey Evans from Vince McMahon and blah, blah, blah. Okay, she had a couple of title matches, had a couple of high-profile matches on pay-per-view, and poof. Literally, and I've said it before, when she made her tease debuts on Raw, if you will, she just walk out on stage, walk to the bottom of the ramp, turn around, and thanks for coming, Lacey. That's all I've been saying. Well, yeah, thanks for coming, Evans. So we get to our next match as Rey Mysterio takes on Andrade. As Mysterio tried to get revenge over Andrade, trying to rip off, actually he did take off Rey Mysterio's mask the week before during a gauntlet match to determine the United States Championship #1 contender, that being Ricochet. Many, including myself, thought that this should have been a WrestleMania match. But, of course, Rey even back then was dealing with an injury, unfortunately, and had like a less than a minute match with Samoa Joe for the U.S. title. And Andrade was relegated to the Battle Royal. So there's that. But here I thought these guys had a tremendous match, had great chemistry. Always. After delivering a powerbomb, Andrade once again tried to rip off the mask of Rey as the referee tried to break that up. Rey stumbles towards the ropes, where Zelina Vega drops him across the second rope, bouncing him back into the ring, allowing Andrade to deliver the hammerlock DDT to get the win. I know a lot of people are upset. Isn't it funny? I haven't heard too much of this, but I know people are complaining and getting upset that Rey's been losing a lot lately, especially since his comeback. But no one's saying, they're burying Mysterio. For everyone else that's been on TV for, week after week, day in and day out, they lose constantly. They're still burying this guy. But Rey, because why? He's a veteran, he's a legend, he's a Hall of Famer, well, future Hall of Famer. And because he's the greatest of all time, he can't be considered getting buried on TV every week now. Or maybe we're just not there yet. The amount of losses for Mysterio. I mean, he returned after losing to Lashley after his shoulder injury. First night back, he challenges anybody against Lashley, and he gets squashed. Ironically, now Lashley's out with injury after his surgery. So, yeah, I know you don't see these things coming, but it's just the irony there. But what do I know? And clearly a setup backstage, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was taped earlier in the day, we see 24/7 champion Maria and her husband Mike Kanellis at an OBGYN office. We hear Maria telling Mike to be the protector and pay attention to not only herself but the unborn child. Back from commercial, we see Maria in the hospital robe, gown, whichever you want to call it, and she's about to get examined as she lays back and gets a hug from her husband Mike. And all of a sudden we see a hand tapping the back of Mike 3 times, and it ends up being the female referee, which I apologize for I forgot her name, but it's the female referee because, of course, you can't have a Dr. GYN, there. That would have been awkward. What, Maria wanted a guy to? Anyway, so Mike Kanellis pins his own wife at an OBGYN hospital or office to win the 24/7 championship. Of course, Maria can't get up and chase after the guy because she's supposedly wearing nothing but a hospital gown and hospital socks. And so in celebration, Mike heads back into the lobby where we first saw them. And of course, we have 2 conveniently disguised individuals covering their faces with magazine. And one of them was obviously R-Truth. The other one ended up being Carmella. And R-Truth used the same referee that Mike did after tossing over, because R-Truth was dressed as a pregnant woman. He removes the toy baby doll, tosses it over Mike's head, who for some reason tried to catch it, but this allowed him to turn his back to Truth and get rolled up and gets a 3 count, and R-Truth is your new 24/7 champion. Well, I mean, we all like to gripe about some of these things, some of these presentations and delivery when it comes to backstage settings, and they're trying to dress it up as if, in this case, a OBGYN office. Well, can you not make it look like the walls made out of curtains? Like literally, that thing was drooping down so much. I'm like, okay, which office is? No, try harder. You guys are a multi-million, dare say a billion-dollar company that can't afford drywall and paint that up. Shout out to anyone that reminds Brock Lesnar that he has a job. Give that guy a raise. But here he was, once again, with Paul Heyman, as they cut their promo leading up to SummerSlam, that Heyman, after showing footage of the attack on Seth Rollins after his match with Dolph Ziggler last week, Lesnar just destroys him in the ring with a bunch of suplexes and an F5, a couple of chair shots, and then attacks him again while he was trying to be loaded up into the ambulance, and he F5s him on top of the stretcher. So the idea here is Seth Rollins is extremely hurt. And what's funny, the match is still advertised. The match is still going to happen at SummerSlam, but at no point did anyone ever say that Rollins is or isn't medically cleared to continue. I guess they forgot that little detail, or maybe Rollins signed a waiver that, no, this match is more important, because Rollins will come down here limping, overselling at times, I think, but he gets in the ring, he has a chair, he tries to swing it, but of course he's too slow. Lesnar again attacks relentlessly. A few more chest shots, another F5, so they leave him laying. Rollins somehow gets a microphone and says that it's more important for him to win the championship. He's fighting for what he loves. Sorry, Becky. Now, sometimes my attention to detail can get the best of me, but in this case, no. supposedly got broken ribs. You can't breathe. An inch away from having a collapsed lung or whatnot. He's selling it just fine, Rollins is, but when it comes to trying to speak while hurt, he's freaking reading a bedtime story. Where's the agony? Where's the anguish? Where's the pain in your voice? It was nowhere in this promo. But you expect a lot of us to have sympathy for you because you're hurt. You still want to fight for a title again to win it back from the same guy you're beating before again. Moving on. The Viking Raiders once again in a squash match defeating two local talents. And at this point, the WWE paid tribute to the late great Harley Race. I couldn't imagine, they paid tribute all weekend on social media, and this was the first time they made it public and had a tremendous video tribute to Harley Race. And honestly, I thought it was put together very nicely, very touching. There will definitely be no other like a Harley Race. Hometown hero Kurt Angle was a special guest referee in a rematch between Drew McIntyre and Cedric Alexander. Although the match started the way it was supposed to in the ring after the bell, both men ended up on the outside. Kurt Angle began to count, and all of a sudden the lights flicker. They go out, and we come back to see the Fiend attacking Kurt Angle with the mandible claw. And of course, with the strobe light effect and the zooming in and out, which definitely overkill. We know he's scary. And the constant looping of the screaming over the speakers. Why can't they make the scream last longer before you start looping after maybe 3 seconds? So of course the match ends in a no contest. The New Day of Big E and Xavier Woods take on the OC of Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. So it's tag team champions versus tag team champions. AJ Styles was ringside, and almost immediately after the bell rings, he interferes by removing Big E from the apron, jumps into the ring and attacks Xavier Woods 3-on-1. But out comes Ricochet for the save, and guess what we have next? 6-man tag team match. Of course we do. But at the end, the Good Brothers will deliver the Magic Killer to Xavier Woods to pin and win the match. Samoa Joe heads down to the ring and waiting for Roman Reigns to appear as he was about to hold Raw hostage. All of a sudden, we have a tech personnel or one of the camera crew come over to Samoa Joe and say that Roman Reigns is here. He's in the arena. Is he now? Because Joe jumps out of the ring. He heads back. And then we have another camera from backstage following Joe from behind, heading towards the parking lot. And we see Joe, the other Joe, Roman Reigns, pulling up in his rental car. So that tech guy, that ring crew, whatever, he lied. Roman Reigns was not at the arena if he's already pulling in. Anyway, so Joe and Joe exchange words about what happened last week on SmackDown, when all of a sudden Roman Reigns looks to his left, jumps back in his car, and he gets T-boned by another car. Samoa Joe himself took aback to this literally as he stepped back a few. All of a sudden, we go to commercial. We come back and they had the footage from during a commercial break, and they show us that the car eventually who hit Roman Reigns' car backed up and spat off. Of course, all the windows were tinted, so we have no idea who this is. And Joe, showing sympathy and concern over his fallen fellow wrestler, telling Roman Reigns to stay down, asking and screaming for medical attention, which he finally gets it. And we go back to live, and we see Triple H is checking in on Roman Reigns. Does Triple H need to be involved with every car accident that there is in WWE? It's been a decade now that he's been dropped. Triple H was dropped while in the car. I think it was a Lincoln Continental back at Survivor Series by Stone Cold Steve Austin. And for all we knew, Triple H was dead, the character, only to come back a week later. Sure. So now it's the guessing game. I'll get into it later with the SmackDown review, but Joe, Samoa Joe, that is now, for now, off the person of interest list. If he has any involvement whatsoever with these alleged setup and tragic accidents towards Roman Reigns to severely hurt him. For the women's tag team championships, yeah, remember those? The Kabuki Warriors take on Fire and Desire, take on Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, and champions the Iconics. And it's not often that they do this, but in a sense, I guess to get the crowd more into it and the viewers at home, like, holy shit, look what they did. Because they were involved in a fatal 4-way elimination match, which makes pretty much anything goes. And the Iconics were the first one eliminated as Mandy Rhodes pinned Billie Kay after delivering a high-flying knee to the face and got the pin. So we were guaranteed new tag team women's champions by the end. Shortly after, Mandy Rhodes is eliminated via submission by the Asuka Lock. And at the end, Alexa Bliss delivers Twisted Bliss, jumping off the top rope to pin Kairi Sane. And Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross are your new women's tag team champions. Honestly, well, a lot of people didn't see it coming. A lot of people didn't expect it. But honestly, I'm not too surprised considering how hard Alexa and Nikki have been working as of late. Despite completely eliminating the storyline angle that they were going to break up and face each other at some point at SummerSlam and maybe later on. It could still happen. But making them tag team champions, and really, from all the women that were involved in the match, who have we seen more of? So now, even if Alexa is at limited capacity to perform in the ring, she can still have her Moment of Bliss talk show and brag about being a women's tag team champion along with Nikki Cross and give these belts more exposure. I mean, personally, I thought the Iconics were a hell of an entertaining tag team. It always made me laugh. Their iconic pose always put a smile on my face. They were entertaining. And their in-ring ability was very good. But I guess because people found them too obnoxious and because not their fault why they weren't on TV as much to defend the very same titles that we as fans hoped for to see make a comeback. And they did after 30-something years. They were never booked properly. Titles that were rarely, if ever, defended. I think they were defended maybe just once since WrestleMania, maybe twice on SmackDown. And here we are in August about to gear up for SummerSlam. Again, it goes back to that issue. Are there too many championships in the WWE? Answer, hell yeah. And in the main event slot, we have a contract signing on Miz TV, where Miz introduced Shawn Michaels for no reason whatsoever other than being yet another swerve, and then calls out Dolph Ziggler, who was supposed to be, or at least an eventual opponent for The Miz. So after some trash talking, Ziggler signs the contract, but only Miz steps in to inform him that, oh, wait a minute, our match doesn't take place until next Monday night, the day after SummerSlam. So you have a different opponent for the contract you just signed. So he turns to Shawn Michaels. Everybody's going ooh and ah, which again was teased the past couple of weeks after he was super kicked by Ziggler on SmackDown. And you would think like, well, common sense, right? But more swerves. And of course, it's not Shawn Michaels, as Goldberg's music hits and he makes his march to the ring, signs the contract, and warns Ziggler that he is next. Now, I didn't cover this last week because there was no coverage of Raw and SmackDown. I thought the shows were lackluster at best. But supposedly, according to Dave Meltzer, Mike Johnson, and Brian Alvarez, they've received phone calls from someone in WWE asking them how did they know that it was going to be Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler, because they've announced it, they reported it. It's rumored to be, or after a while, like, no, it is going to be Goldberg versus Ziggler at SummerSlam. So the cat was out of the bag, so to speak. But my argument is, why do you care? How many rumors have been out there, even though they've been confirmed or not? would come true anyway. One of the biggest ones were about the Hardy Boys a couple of years ago at WrestleMania in Orlando. But WWE tried to cover up as best as possible. They try to tease it like, oh, no, instead of a triple threat, we got a four-way for the tag titles. And it wasn't going to be the New Day, who did not wrestle that night, even though they came back in wrestling gear, teasing that it will be them. But no, here come the Hardy Boys. And they still got the same reaction they would have gotten anyway, despite all the swerves, despite all the teases. And is it the Hardy Boys? I thought they signed. What's going on? So WWE needs to just chill. And if the stuff gets out there, it's one thing if the Wrestling Observer, for example, or PW Insider, if they run their business as if they were tabloids, I get that. But they're not. They're just reporting news, confirmed or not, confirmed by sources in and out of WWE. They're doing their jobs as journalists, in this case for pro wrestling. And they've been doing it for years. I'll admit, like many others do, read up on their reports and use their sources as what I come here to report as well on my own. So I wouldn't turn around and say like, well, hey, whatever I report here on the JM Report, don't blame me. I heard it from Meltzer, blame him. No, that's not professional. That's not taking responsibility for the words. In this case, what I'll be saying. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, if any of my stories sound familiar, like, well, that sounds like something that Alvarez or Johnson or Meltzer reported. Well, that's where I get mostly my sources from. Again, it's no secret from anyone that runs a podcast. So obviously someone from WWE side, wrestler, an agent, manager, who what have you, read or came across the podcast of the Wrestling Observer, and they announced this. Goldberg versus Ziggler at SummerSlam. Like, oh, how did he find out before everybody else? You're seriously just now catching up. You seriously just now that there is something out there called podcasting or social media. They're everything that you guys don't do a good job on anyway. So chill. If anything, you should give props to Johnson, Meltzer, and Alvarez, because they found out. And this was further confirmed by Fightful.com and Brian Sapp. So multiple sources. Only difference was those other guys didn't get a phone call from WWE, not that I know of. So Ziggler versus Goldberg. Only reason? Well, to make up for that unfortunate match he had with The Undertaker, as much as it was a, quote, dream match, turned into a nightmare. But again, I still don't blame Goldberg entirely for what happened, although he needs to stop with that nonsense of headbutting the door, lockers, concrete walls, whatever the hell he comes in contact with that rhino head of his. He needs to stop that. On top of that, headbutting the ring post by accident, busting him wide open. For all we know, concussed. It was never confirmed nor denied since then, and he just knocked himself loopy for the rest of the match and just couldn't keep up. So here's his chance to make up for it. TakeOver what he did back in Extreme Rules. So here we are. Goldberg, now it's your turn. You're next to make up for it. So that closed the Raw show. We head over to SmackDown, opening up with Charlotte Flair cutting a promo on Trish Stratus, and of course gets interrupted by Stratus. And after Flair talks down Trish about her family and her minivan, about being a mother, what's wrong with that? I see. Anyway, so Trish responds with a slap to the top of the head, not in the face. Charlotte just restrains, starts laughing, and leaves the ring. So, okay. Goldberg's music hits, but we get swerved yet again, and it's Dolph Ziggler mocking the entrance of Goldberg using local talent, and they missed an opportunity here. Personally, I would have used teenagers or young kids here. Just to, really want to mock, go all the way. I know Jericho did it in WCW. He used, what was his name? Rufus. He got lost getting into the ring, trying to find the entrance to the arena. He almost made it to the parking lot. He made it to an office, to a broom closet. Here, no pyro, by the way, but a missed opportunity is all I got to say. They could have used young kids here. So Ziggler has a match with Rey Mysterio. But Ziggler attacks Mysterio before the bell even rings, making it a no contest as referees and officials try to break this up. Does this count towards saying that Mysterio's getting buried now? He didn't even have a match on SmackDown, but he shows up anyway. Ali would try to make a save, running down. And we got a new match. It was Dolph Ziggler versus Ali. In the end, it took a combination of a headbutt into a super kick for the pin and win over Ali. So looking a little bit strong here heading into SummerSlam, but I'll be damned if the match at SummerSlam lasts more than 5 minutes. We go backstage interview for a sit down with Roman Reigns, trying to figure out what it is or who it is that's attacking him backstage and now in the parking lot the night before. He delivers and issues a public apology to Samoa Joe. He looked dead in the camera and reached out to Samoa Joe, apologizing and thanking him for being concerned from last night on Raw. But he has no clue who's attacking him, but he'll find out before the night is over. Natalya versus Ember Moon advertises challenger versus challenger for the respective women's championships at SummerSlam. So once again, Natalya snaps as the match ends up on the outside of the ring. She slaps on the the sharpshooter, I should say, on Ember Moon. The referee counts out both women this time, but refuses to let go of the hold. Natalya does. Referee jumps down, try to break it up, to no avail. Here comes Bayley to the rescue. Bayley comes down and breaks off Natalya, only to get shoved for her troubles, and she walks away. So Bayley checks on Ember Moon. So what's the deal here? Can Ember Moon not defend herself? I mean, yeah, she was trapped in the sharpshooter, but you mean to tell me she couldn't fight back? Or even if the referee were able to peel off Natalya, and after a few moments, Natalya would try to attack her again. And I mean, Natalya, yeah, she's a challenger for a women's title. Well, so was Ember Moon. So for 2 nights back to back, Natalya looked more stronger than Ember Moon going in for the title match at SummerSlam. So what is wrong with Ember? Not good. The Kevin Owens show with special guest Shane McMahon, as Owens wanted Shane to put his career on the line as well, but of course Shane says no. If Kevin Owens loses, he quits WWE. So Shane offers well, why wait till SummerSlam? We can have a match right here, right now. So they teased another match here between the two, only for Elias to come out and interfere. The match that never happened rose to the outside, right in front of the announce tables. Kevin Owens tries to set up Shane McMahon onto the top of the announce table. Once again, gets attacked from behind by Elias, and Elias gets a stunner on top of the table for his trouble. And Shane McMahon will trip up Kevin Owens, knocking him to the ground. He'll kick him a few times, and he'll turn over the announce table, assumingly trapping Kevin Owens underneath, but he is not. But Shane grabs a steel chair, drapes it across Owens' face, and delivers a low drop kick, Shane McMahon does, knocking Kevin Owens out. In a SummerSlam match that was supposed to take place at SummerSlam, Sami Zayn takes on Aleister Black. And this didn't take too long, as Aleister would win with Black Mass for the pin and win. Why did Aleister Black have to cut a promo from inside his little coffin or little trapdoor, whatever that's called, on the entrance ramp before he rises up and walks down the rest of the way to the ring? Why couldn't he do this on screen in his little black, room, dark closet or whatever it's called? And then have him teleport to his coffin-like entrance? But it just looked like he, talk about being buried, it looked like he just got done with a Buried Alive match and somehow got a hold of a microphone, and he's still talking trash while dirt's being thrown on him. It just, it looked ridiculous. It just took a lot of mystique away from Aleister, that when he rises up, as if he was just being, woken, no pun intended, to Matt Hardy. He does his pose, and then he walks the rest of the way to the ring. He's portrayed as a dark character, dark figure, a la Sting or Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, what have you. He doesn't have or been shown magical powers, let's say, or teleportation powers, but he was a missed opportunity. But nobody asked me, so I'm just wondering who the hell thought of this idea and thought it would look good on TV. No, it did not. The Firefly Funhouse returned as Bray Wyatt. announces that it was Finn Balor, the one that invited The Fiend willingly for his fight at SummerSlam, and that they've been hurt long enough and that it's time for Finn Balor to be hurt. What the hell has been Finn Balor's of late? Yeah, I know he's planning to take some time off after SummerSlam, and he dealt with a stomach virus a couple of weeks ago, but he had a match that week later on, so... Chad Gable. I didn't realize it was him because I haven't been following 205 Live, but I realized that he cut his hair and is clean shaven now. He literally looked like a child. And it's funny because he gets confronted by Elias, asking him not to leave his warm-up bands, or what do you call them? Those stretchy bands that Scott Steiner is famous to use. But anyway, he had those bands laid across Elias's guitar. And Elias said he thought he was talking to a child. And, of course, he talked down Chad Gable a little bit more, and Gable did nothing. As Elias says, that's what I thought, and walked away. SmackDown Tag Team Champions Xavier Woods and Big E take on Eric Rowan and Daniel Bryan in your main event. Xavier Woods was attempting a suicide dive through the ropes, but instead he gets countered by Eric Rowan using the ringside steel steps to stop him, causing a DQ. And this literally segues backstage. We see Roman Reigns walking around. He ends up in the men's locker room. He tells everyone to clear out except Buddy Murphy, who he was told that he was in the vicinity of the forklift incident. And Roman continues to interrogate Buddy Murphy, denying everything. And that even if he did know anything, he still wouldn't tell Roman Reigns. Of course, this upset Roman and it begins attacking him. He pins him against the wall, forearm in the throat, and out of nowhere, Murphy says that it was Rowan. Roman Reigns asks for confirmation, as in Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan. He says yes. And we cut back to the ring where Rowan and Bryan are still in the ring. Daniel Bryan looks all confused. Roman showing absolutely no emotion whatsoever. And SmackDown goes off the air. There was a bonus exclusive footage of backstage interview with Bryan and Rowan. Of course, Rowan did not answer any questions because Bryan did not allow him to. But Bryan did point out, like, wait a minute. Buddy Murphy didn't say anything about Rowan until he was being attacked and choked by Roman Reigns. So for all we know, Buddy Murphy could have just said that to get out of that situation. So basically, Roman Reigns is going after an innocent man in Rowan. So we will find out where this leads to, because Roman Reigns has no match for SummerSlam, nor do Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan. So what is the deal there? I mean, not that we won't see them at all, but I'm sure there'll be a confrontation of sorts. And we'll continue on to the following week's Raw and SmackDown. Speaking of which, let's get right into the SummerSlam preview live from Toronto, Canada. And in no particular order, Universal Champion Brock Lesnar defends against Seth Rollins once again, although Rollins is selling a severe abdominal injury. For the Raw Women's Championship, Becky Lynch defends against Natalya in a submission match that was confirmed after Natalya doubted that Becky would accept it, but she did. So here we are. For the WWE Championship, Kofi Kingston defends against longtime rival Randy Orton. SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley defends against Ember Moon. Kevin Owens takes on Shane McMahon. If Kevin Owens loses, he must quit WWE. Charlotte Flair takes on hometown gal Trish Stratus. Goldberg, as mentioned earlier, will take on Dolph Ziggler. In a rematch for the United States Championship, AJ Styles defends against Ricochet. Finn Balor, not expected to be as the Demon, will take on the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. For the Cruiserweight Championship, Drew Gulak goes one-on-one with Oney Lorcan. As of now, neither one of these matches are going to be advertised for the kickoff. Would not surprise me once again if the Cruiserweight title ends up there. Of course, there's still time for other matches to be added because there are a lot of names missing. No Roman Reigns, no Samoa Joe, no Drew McIntyre, just to name a few. But it's supposed to be the biggest event after WrestleMania in the summertime known as SummerSlam. So what is the dealio? But of course, SummerSlam is not the only one in town. We also have NXT TakeOver Toronto. In a scheduled 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Championship as Adam Cole defends against Johnny Gargano. In the first fall, Cole opted to have a classic straight-up wrestling match. And in the second fall will be a street fight as opted by Johnny Gargano. And if need be, going into a third fall, William Regal, commissioner of NXT, will decide the stipulation for the third and final fall. For the NXT Women's Championship, Shayna Baszler defends against Mia Yim. Honestly, I think Mia Yim is going to be the closest threat to the Women's Championship in the NXT. As much as I would love to see it, I just don't see them pulling the trigger here as far as dropping the title, that being Shayna Baszler. I'm not saying Mia Yim doesn't have it, but there's just so many haters out there that just don't see Mia Yim as a worthy champion. But we get it. Shayna Baszler has dominated and steamrolled over everyone in the women's division in NXT. So if not a win for the title, how about at the very least get another DQ or count-out finish over the champion and have a decisive winner for the takeover around Survivor Series weekend. But again, this is why I try not to have predictions, but what I like to do as far as fantasy booking goes. And Mia Yim, if anyone has seen that Viceland documentary, not on her specifically, but in women's wrestling in general from around the world, I mean, she really opened up. I don't want to mention here what she talks about, but I think you guys should go out of your way to really look up this Viceland documentary. It's on demand for sure. They have the Dark Side of Wrestling. That's not the name of the show. The Wrestlers, I think it's called The Wrestlers. And each episode devotes on a specific topic, whether it's a specific country like Japan or Mexico, and they talk about the styles there. Another episode talks about intergender wrestlers in the business. Another one talks about women, in this case where Mia Yim has several appearances and talks about her personal life, what happened before she joined WWE. And this might have been recorded at least a few months before the Mae Young Classic where she appeared in. So it might be a little bit outdated, but it doesn't change the fact of the stories that she shares and what she went through. Now, I don't know if anyone in WWE has even saw this documentary or is aware of it, but I say she deserves at least one opportunity to run with the championship. In a triple threat match for the NXT North American Championship, the Velveteen Dream defends against Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong. So far, every single match, like they always do with NXT TakeOvers, should be the match of the night. I just can't pick one out here right now. Until we get to the NXT Tag Team Championship matches as the Street Profits defend against the the Undisputed Era, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Now, not that I'm doubting that this match can't be one of the matches of the night, but I have concerns ever since Street Profits have been appearing on Raw, wearing the NXT titles where teams before them couldn't do that for some reason. So is this their final match in NXT? Will they drop the titles to Undisputed Era? I mean, because Undisputed Era has an opportunity to walk out with all the championships in NXT. Again, yes, I know they've had chances like this before, but never this close. Though the triple threat for the North American title could go either way. But if the idea is to have the Undisputed Era, they've been in town for almost 2 years now. Coming up, I think, on the anniversary of their debut. Let's have them as a legit faction and a threatening one in that by holding all the championships in NXT. And in a grudge match, as Candice LeRae takes on Io Shirai, friends no more. Io Shirai has turned heel a few weeks ago out of frustration of not able to beat Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's title, even inside of a steel cage. So it should be a good one. I can't remember the last time I seen LeRae in a physical match I expect one to be here with Io Shirai because she'll bring them kicks, she'll bring those elbows and forearms, chops, thighs, you name them, she'll bring him. So that is your SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver Toronto preview. Of course, I will have the results of both shows next time on the JM Report. But for now, let's move on to other stories of the week. Triple H had a preview of TakeOver for this weekend show, conducting interviews with the media, taking questions from everyone and anyone. And quite a few standouts here as far as his response go, and I thought they were very interesting that I would like to share. In regards to the Evolve 10th anniversary show that they had recently on their network and the future of the WWE network, says, as you've seen the new rollout of the network stuff and plans for the network down the line, Evolve shows, different shows, brands we have alliances with, they will factor into the network in a big way. Evolve was a great show, obviously a huge deal for a bunch of young talent that are trying to make their names for themselves. If you want to be a WWE superstar, then Evolve is the place for you to try to be much like Progress, ICW, WXW. It was a grand slam. You're going to see a lot more as time comes. The WWE Network will be the one-stop shop for everything you could ever need and want in the industry. In regards to Simone Johnson, the daughter of Dwayne Johnson, says obviously it's The Rock's daughter, but I would say that she shares her father and entire family's passion for what we do. Incredibly so. She also shares her family's incredible work ethic, much like they do. The nut didn't fall from the tree. It's awesome to see that next generation to come in. Very cool, and she's extremely hard worker. If she wants this, much like her dad, there's nothing that will stop her. I've yet to see any footage of her training, probably for legal issues. I mean, she's still a minor. So, be interesting to see. I mean, she has the height so far, but I'm not doubting that she doesn't have the athletic skills. I mean, look at her parents. Have you not seen Danny Garcia? Yeah, they've been divorced, sure, for a few years now, but father being Dwayne Johnson, the genetics is there for a well physical female presence to look either intimidating or dominating or both. But she definitely has the height for it. She's almost a 6-footer herself, and she's just a teenager, still in high school. No, I'm sorry. I think she just graduated. My mistake. She just graduated and is about to begin her first year of college. So, yeah, things are going really well. It's just be interesting to see how she'll balance education and training. But I'm sure the family's going to say something like, no, get your degree first and then decide if you want to still continue training or pursue a career outside. Triple H was also asked about the positions given to Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, saying, no, you've got to understand the way it's laid out. The scope of what they're doing is very specific to their shows. While I'm still at those shows many weeks due to my schedule, I can't be at every Raw or every single SmackDown. The scope of things that I do is way beyond that with those live events and creative. It's shirts and billboards where everything else goes in the world. The talent roster continues to grow and talent development continues to grow. As we expand globally and performance centers, there are only so many hours in a day. So he kind of explains there as to why wasn't he chosen to be these executive directors. But then again, these are positions that were creative literally from the ground up. Before this, there was no such thing as an executive director. And like even Vince McMahon himself would miss a SmackDown here or Raw there, but usually SmackDown, since Raw was his baby, so to speak, back in the day. So it does make sense for Triple H not being able to be at every single show, as he pointed out here. And he needs someone with much, if not more, experience than he has in the business to run SmackDown and Raw, with, of course, Vince McMahon's overseeing everything. I mentioned earlier about the Trish Stratus-Charlotte Flair match at SummerSlam, and all of a sudden, at least not on WWE TV, but elsewhere, is being advertised as Trish Stratus' last match. She already had one nearly a decade ago in the very same building, and I believe even at this very same event, retiring, winning, not only that, but as WWE Women's Champion. You can't have a proper send-off any better than that, although the time-honored tradition is that when someone's leaving or retiring, you pass the torch to your opponent or your next viral so they can continue on with their career, and you're the one that's taking the pinfall or tapping out. So Trish is going to have yet a second last match, or her last match, versus Charlotte Flair. And Trish had an interview with the Toronto Sun saying, as you get older, you decide this is it. I don't need to keep coming back. I've had my ride, but this scenario was so special to face a superstar like Charlotte Flair at this point in my life in Toronto at the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. WrestleMania is first. What could be more right? So, of course, she had to answer this question or answer the statement in a very Trish Stratus WWE kind of way. Again, I think they realized what they had. The rundown sheet for SummerSlam, it was at best. So bringing Goldberg. Let's have who's famous and Canadian that we've had under our roster? Well, of course, no Bret Hart to be found. How about Natalia's from, give her a title shot. Oh wait, Trish Stratus, she's still under legendary contracts, I believe. Bring her back. So we have two Hall of Famers essentially coming out of retirement again to have one last match in the same night at SummerSlam. So it's the battle of generations. I say good luck with that. Several wrestling journalists are reporting that this week's SmackDown was being rewritten hours before the show went on the air. Very similar to the previous week's SmackDown, because Vince McMahon allegedly has torn up the scripts. This according to Sean Ross Sapp, heard from several sources that Vince McMahon has decided he's not satisfied with SmackDown this week, and with the script in particular, and was redoing the entire show within 2 hours before going on the air. And this being, of course, this week was the SmackDown Go Home show. Ryan Satin also had the very similar report, so there's a bit of confirmation for you. And Dave Meltzer also confirmed this. So what is going on in the mind of Vince McMahon that he's not satisfied with whatever was written for SmackDown this week and last week, that he had to tear up the sheets, tear up the script, and we got what we got. Not that it was that bad. I don't know if they're going to stick with the Roman Reigns and Eric Rowan angle going forward. I don't know if this removes Samoa Joe entirely, or they can swerve us again. And it wouldn't surprise me if, just for the hell of it, because he has some time left on his contract, why not bring back Luke Harper. So many Erics here. Bring back Luke Harper as a big-time swerve. Have him team up with Rowan again and mix in Daniel Bryan, as reluctant as he is. But I don't think he's going to be that reluctant, considering that exclusive interview they had after SmackDown went off the air. They have all the game pieces. It's just a matter of how they're going to use them. And most cases, they just don't. And the talent at the end of the day are the ones suffering more than the fans are, because we just get frustrated. We don't see certain individuals and talent that have talent and not given the TV time that they deserve. This week it was revealed for the SummerSlam weekend for 2020, and it'll be held in Boston, Massachusetts. It was announced during an article on the Boston Globe, or in the Boston Globe, that TD Garden will host the pay-per-view on Sunday, August 23rd. With a live episode of SmackDown on Friday, August 21st, NXT TakeOver Boston on Saturday, August 22nd, and Monday Night Raw on August 24th. So we have a 4-day weekend, nothing but Boston Garden events from SmackDown all the way through Monday Night Raw. Of course, by this time, SmackDown will be on Fox. That's why it's on a Friday. And it will be the first ever pay-per-view in Boston since 2017's Clash of Champions. So it's been a minute. And thankfully, no more back and forth between the East Coast and West Coast back-to-back years. So I think it was about 5-6 years in a row. It was in Los Angeles for a few years and then back in New York, or at least in the New York area. So, yeah, I think, screw that. We go where the best offers are coming from. And I guess Boston won this feud in a sense. So, Boston, get ready. 2020 SummerSlam weekend. Bit of an update on the XFL as Commissioner and CEO Oliver Luck has started to invite an exclusive list of top free agent players to be part of the league's first ever draft pool, saying extending invitations to our draft process marks the first step of an extraordinary football journey. Many of the outstanding athletes who receive a commissioner's invitation will be among the first to take the field in our new league, proudly representing their fans and their communities. I am delighted to offer them an exciting opportunity. The XFL will conduct its first player draft in October and include current and former professional football players. Each of the league's 8 teams will draft 70 players. Players who accept the commissioner's invitation must complete and sign a HIPAA release form and consent to clear a background check. Only players meeting these 2 basic requirements will be considered fully draft eligible. And if drafted, a player must then successfully pass a medical examination, a drug test, and subsequently execute an XFL standard player contract. So, pretty basic stuff. I mean, this is not discussing anything about salary or income or anything like that. I'm sure, at least I hope, this is an option or something that can happen down the line. But just as the league itself, if they haven't already, receive advertisements or sponsors for their games, even players individually like they do in the NFL. Why can't they? Why wouldn't they? But this is a whole fresh start. This is not going to be, not entirely anyway, under WWE banner or umbrella, even though the founder of the XFL is the owner of the WWE. But I really hope, giving the benefit of the doubt, I mean, they had an opportunity the first time around with the first season of XFL. It's just too WWE influenced, if that makes sense to anyone. And what's funny is, if anyone's ever seen or owned the McMahon DVD, Joey South said it best. Like the very first thing, the very first scene, the very first segment of the very first XFL game, you see The Rock. I'm sure at the time made sense because, Rock being a former college football star himself, had an opportunity to play with the NFL, but things didn't work out. But I think considering nowadays how things are going for him, he's not complaining too much. But if you're looking at it from a pro wrestling point of view and a no point, because The Rock was in character the entire time. This is the XFL. If you can smell what the XFL is cooking and this and that, which is great, but it's the freaking Rock. It's a wrestler. Can you imagine if one day they have a WWE superstar flip the coin to begin the Super Bowl one year? I don't think that's ever happened, but at the same time, unless the Super Bowl is going to air on NBC, I don't see no kind of working relationship. Well, maybe with Fox. I think Fox is next to host the Super Bowl, so it might be a chance for that. But as far as the idea goes, I don't think that anything's ever happened like that. But if they want to stay in good working relationships, maybe somebody bring up that idea. Hey, how about we have whomever the current WWE champion is at the time or the Universal champion both flip the coin to start off Super Bowl, whatever they're up to for that year. Just, try and do some things that are different. I mean, they have celebrities before. They've had political figures before. Why not? Scott Stanford, who is a TV host, sports news anchor, studio host WWE, This Week in WWE, CBS Sports headquarters, among other things, showed off that the WWE has renamed their audio studio to the Mean Gene Okerlund studio in Stamford, Connecticut. I thought it was a very touching tribute there for the late, great Mean Gene Okerlund. I'm not sure of the entire name. I mean, this is just me nitpicking, but honestly, I thought before I opened up the article, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess they're going to call it Mean Gene Studios. But no, they went with the entire name and adding the or the Mean Gene Okerlund Studios. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes when names are a little too long, it can be repetitive. But hey, other than that little nitpick, I have absolutely no gripes about this. I thought it was a great tribute. I thought it was a nice touch for the audio studios in WWE. They haven't really put out a CD as of late, so I don't know what's going on. This might be separate from their music division. Last I heard, it was SmackDown Records. So, and man, it's also been a while because they had a deal with RCA. I don't even know if that's still a thing. But kudos and a nice touching tribute to Mean Gene Okerlund. PW Insider is reporting that WWE is making plans to return to Parts Unknown in October for their 4th ever Parts Unknown show called, well, you know, that show that Hogan had appeared in, opened up the show, and then never appeared again. Once more, and will take place on Halloween. Coincidence? Honestly, I don't know if they celebrate or acknowledge Halloween in that part of the world. Not everyone does. But it will take place in the same stadium. And yes, for those who are wondering, I refuse to name that place, that particular place of the world by name because of what happened to a reporter. And a few weeks later, the WWE was contractually obligated to host a show from the very same country that allegedly had a tie-in with the death of said reporter. And a lot of companies, although many of them dropped out from having any kind of business tie-in, but others, including WWE, remained loyal and decided to continue. The only thing that they decided to do is not to name the country of their event was taking place in. So by that logic, I would do the same until further notice. Now, they've done so for the past 2 shows in Parts Unknown. By October, it will be nearly a year since the incident. So we'll see if they name drop the name of the country this time. I doubt it. There's just a lot of nonsense going on right now with them in connections with United States of America. But what do I know? This is why I'm out of politics. This is why I'm not running for office anytime soon. So, but if it looks, sounds, and smells like it, you got to treat it as is. That's all I got to say. Pac, or the former Adrian Neville, has reportedly suffered an injury after a tweet from Ring Rules announcing that Pac was injured at a recent show overseas. No details about the injury are currently confirmed, but the tweet claimed that the injury was Pac's groin. Ouch. But the picture in the tweet doesn't support that claim. I can't really describe it here. I mean, you have to see that for yourselves over at Ring Rules Twitter account. But Carlos Toro of Fightful provides additional details that the injury occurred at a show for TNT Extreme Wrestling after Pac recently lost the Open the Dream Gate Championship. Some fans hoped Pac would finally be able to work for AEW. Unfortunately, with this injury, it's unclear if those hopes will ever come true at any time, but it's still a possibility. I know there was issues before. He was scheduled to appear at Double or Nothing, I believe it was, but he had some visa issues and couldn't make it, so that match he had with Hangman Page took place, but it was in Europe instead, and it was broadcast here in the States in streaming services, so things can still be worked out. But if you want a full-fledged, full-time contracted AEW competitor in Pac, just get all this paperwork in order. It's not like he's a flight risk or anything like that. So, yeah, things could be worked out. Today actually drops the 3rd season of Glow on Netflix. I've had the privilege to have spoken to a few of the original Glow girls over at my Talking with JM episodes. So check them out. And there will be more to come, by the way. So stay tuned for that. But when asked, the star of the show, Alison Brie, about maybe possibly working in WWE, she says, "I will be game to get into the ring and do something with them. I have such respect for what they do, but I feel like my contributions will be minimal in comparison. Those women who wrestle for WWE are a league of athletes that is far superior to what we're doing on the show. I feel so proud for the moves that we learn, and we legitimately do our own stunts. We put a lot of work into learning these wrestling moves accurately, and we do them well. But what those women do also is insane. It's just elite athleticism." So they've made an appearance, they being the cast of Glow, after the debut of season 2 on SmackDown. And it will be interesting, but, as popular and as fun as it is to watch the Netflix series of Glow, you heard it here on Talking with JM from Hollywood herself, that Vince McMahon didn't think too highly of them. And unfortunately, we had audio difficulties at the time, but the Royal Hawaiian also back up that statement, which I will have her come down to speak with me for another episode of Talking with JM. But the story goes, they were at a TV convention, both WWF at the time and Glow were in the same vicinity of each other. Vince McMahon, according to Hollywood, told his wrestlers not to go over, not to speak to any of the Glow girls and whatnot. Even though some did, some agents as well, including Hillbilly Jim. So what's the deal? I mean, just like the TV series itself, it doesn't make any sense at all not to have any cameos from the original Glow girls. May or may not be a contract issue, or may not be a creative issue. Who knows? But Tina Ferrari, who ended up being Ivory in WWE and now a Hall of Famer, and she did invite, when she was inducted, she did invite a few of the original Glow girls backstage. They were just not seen on TV. So again, I ask, what's the problem? If they weren't the first ever women's evolution, because there are the Mae Youngs, of course, of the past that were first, I get that. But when it came to TV exposure for the first ever women's all wrestling group, it was Glow. Fast forward to today, you have the Women's of Wrestling organization, ironically created from the same people that created Glow. So there's still an audience there. There's still potential to be successful long term, and WOW has been just that, especially since they had a TV deal with Access TV, and I believe the next season drops in the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that. But I still stand by my idea that if there's ever a way to collect all of the original footage, all of the original shows, 4 seasons of Glow, whether it's to create a box set completely after you turn them into HD or convert them into HD and have them be available on the WWE Network in exchange for a Hall of Fame induction for all of the original Glow girls. Now, I know some of you listening might be wondering or saying that, well, that's not possible, at least from the Glow end side of things. And that's fine. You know what? I don't know the entire stories. I know, well, let's just put it this way. Not everyone's working together. And I'll leave that up to everyone's imagination as to why and how. But for this common ground and for this type of exposure, after nearly 30 years off television and then resurrected in a sense by Netflix, I guess all the stars will have to be aligned in such a way that one night that the right person comes across and says, hey, we need to do this. Let's do this. And everything will be right in the world, at least in the world of pro wrestling. Dave Meltzer reports that the Daniel Bryan, quote, career-changing announcement is no more. The angle has been scrapped entirely. And for those who have wondered and asked, no, it had nothing to do with what's currently going on with the involvement of Roman Reigns and possibly Eric Rowan being involved with Roman Reigns getting attacked. So this is a whole different story. And this also aligns with Vince McMahon tearing up the past couple of weeks SmackDown scripts. So Meltzer goes on to report that Roman Reigns won't be taking on Bryan at SummerSlam, but there's still time for that to change or to be added. But I'm pretty sure, and I mentioned this earlier as well, I'm pretty sure there will be some kind of segment, whether it's backstage or in the ring. SummerSlam is scheduled to be 4 hours long itself, not including the kickoff. So there's plenty of time and just a matter of where to place this new angle where either Roman Reigns confronts Rowan or he runs into Daniel Bryan and then Rowan attacks him from behind or whatever the deal is. Something's got to give to Sunday night at SummerSlam for this particular angle. We might have a better idea as to what the show for AEW will be called when they debut on TNT in October, as they recently filed a trademark that may end up being the name of the show, that being AEW Revolution, for various purposes, including merchandise, TV, and live events. It should be noted that AEW filed for Wednesday Night Dynamite, as it was trademarked a few months ago, but it was speculated that the name was also for the television show as well. So we have potentially 2 names for the TV show. It was confirmed that AEW's TNT show will be on Wednesdays every week. So now Wednesday Night Dynamite or AEW Revolution. I'm not aware of any poll that gives the fans the opportunity to vote for which one sounds the best, but we'll see. We're about a month and a half away, so we should be okay in finding out further details as they come along. And finally, I mentioned this earlier as well, Bobby Lashley being out on injury. Lashley was reportedly injured last month, but there was no official word. But now we have confirmation, according to the PW Insider, that Lashley underwent elbow surgery to remove bone spurs. Ouch. There was no timetable given as far as how long he'll be out or when he'll return, but hopefully it won't be as long because the heel side of things, at least on Raw, is very lackluster as well. No Baron Corbin, thankfully, but at the same time, no Lashley. It's almost as if Drew McIntyre is carrying the load. And they just can't find a balance between how many heels and how many faces to have and when to use them and how. It's... Who am I, right? I mean, who am I to point out these things among other people, among other fans, among other podcasters, and ask these questions? If I'm always going to be told that maybe I should run my own billion-dollar company and what have you, then, well, to me, that just says that you're confirming everything that we've been complaining about, is that you just don't have the answers or don't know how to do the job anymore. You know what? Of all the newsletters and all the surveys that WWE hands out on the emails, yeah, I think they should send one out giving surveys of who you want to remain in power as far as creative and bookers and agents and what have you. Because people like Kevin Dunn, they need to go. And anyone that would think that his ideas are great as far as production and directing goes, yeah, they all got to go. Because it sucks. It really sucks. And I've said my piece on that many a times. So with that said, thank you for joining me. I know this has been a very short episode, but there have been too many stories that caught my attention that I wanted to share here, but I definitely wanted to run down SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver. And as mentioned earlier, I will have the results for you next time on the JM Report. So until then, everyone be good, behave. School's coming back. Hopefully everyone, all mothers and fathers, have gotten everything their son and daughter need for going back to school. So be safe out there driving on the roads, as school will be back in session soon, at least in my area. Matter of fact, next Monday. So yes, school is back in session. So once again, drive safely, be careful, and be alert on students crossing the road. So once again, behave, be good. Good OJM. Until next time.
Open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your mind and realize that your beautiful world could take my life. And I'm sinking under, drowning faster.